Good afternoon and welcome. Apparently, like I said before, this is well advertised. It's like standing room only almost. It's January 15th, 2019, and this is the Courthouse Project, Civic Center project discussion. Not discussion so much as feedback or input. And by way of introduction, this is being live streamed and recorded. And so I'm Commissioner John Hutchings. This is
Commissioner Ty Menser.
And
Gary Edwards.
I'm Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
Brett Thomas, County Project Manager.
Ron Thomas, President, Thomas Architecture Studios.
Bachelor Connor, Director, Thurston County Public Defense.
Clark Gilman, Olympia City Council.
Cheryl Selby, Mayor, Olympia City Council.
Mary Hall, County Auditor.
Linda Meyer, Enloe County Court.
Jeff Gadman, County Treasurer.
Brett Buckley, Thurston County District Court.
Stephen Drew, Thurston County Assessor.
Carol Murphy, Thurston County Superior Court.
John Thunheim, Prosecuting Attorney.
And just by way of interest, the microphone didn't get passed around. So anyway, just a point of interest. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Petrich, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney's Office.
Megan Porter, Public Information.
Susan Isham, Central Services.
All right, thank you all for being here. We are really winding down now and getting to nearing completion somehow, whatever the next step is. Before I turn it over to Ramiro to frame this whole thing and go through expectations, I just want to say right up front, and I'll say it again probably later today or even next week, and that is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. No, it's, now wait a minute, just say it on the microphone.
That's my saying.
Well,
wow.
We have
I have that copyright.
Oh, do you? Thank God for Google, okay.
we have consensus.
Because throughout this whole 2-year ordeal, my view has changed, and based on my schemas, my experience has changed. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm just asking, please keep an open mind as we go through this whole doggone thing. Ramiro, please.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Let me take some time to outline some of the meeting expectations for today. And the first item on the agenda, we have an opportunity for elected officials, the City of Olympia, as well as the appointed directors, to address the board. And I shared with all of you, and you have the agenda in front of you, we'll give the City of Olympia 10 minutes. Each elected officials will have 5 minutes, and each appointed director will have 5 minutes. I will encourage you to pass the microphones when it's your turn to speak so we can capture what you're saying, and this to the benefit of the public, most of all. And let's please be aware that this is your opportunity to provide comments to the Board of County Commissioners. It will not be an opportunity to questions and answers from the commissioners. That is not the purpose of this. It's just to provide your perspective related to the 3 proposed sites. After that is complete, we'll break for probably 5-10 minutes, depending how the afternoon goes. And the last part of the afternoon, it will be for the commissioners to have a discussion. And this is addressed to the commissioners. Have not had the chance to provide that perspective. At this point, I will encourage the commission not to get to the point of eliminating one side or perhaps showing a preference for one side or another. This is your opportunity to have a conversation among yourselves based on all the feedback that you have received so far in the last few months and the perspective you will be receiving today from the City of Olympia, your elected officials, and appointed directors. There's other considerations you need to take, and one of those is the financial strategies that you may consider as you move along in getting a final determination of the site. So I have already scheduled an executive session for you next Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. And this is under RCW 4230110, Item 1, Item B, which is considered the selection of a site and also the financial strategies. At that point, you will have all that information before you can make an informed decision as to what particular site is the more preferred. So, and again, the last part of this afternoon's meeting is for you to provide your own perspective of the pros and cons, the gaps and opportunities for each of the 3 sites. But again, I encourage you not to get to the point of having your own selection You're on elimination on one side or another. This is just the beginning of the larger conversation. And obviously, the next executive session, which is scheduled again for next Tuesday, you cannot make that decision. That decision needs to be public, and we will arrange that, obviously, so the public is informed about your decision when the time comes.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions on the meeting expectations?
None. Let's keep moving then.
Okay.
So we're to begin with the City of Olympia, and with 10 minutes
Yep.
to provide input, perspective, and such. Oh, wait. Excuse me, Mayor. Who's keeping time?
I'll keep time.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Go ahead.
Is
That
this-
time is yielded back to you.
Is this live?
It is live.
I'm sorry, is it on?
Is it on?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I can't hear whether it's projecting. So I don't believe we'll take 10 minutes, but I'd like to start off by introducing my councilmate, Clark Gilman. Again, he introduced himself. He is our Chair of Land Use. And so he, along with Councilmember Cooper, will be having more robust discussions at the city level on, number one, the impacts to our infrastructure of the different sites, as well as the financing specifically for a downtown site with the fiscal note that's attached that we now know is there. So second of all, the Olympia City Council is very grateful for the briefing that we received from county staff and consultants at our annual city retreat. Our council retreat this past Saturday, especially when it was on such short notice. We were given a lot of information. A lot of this was new to my council. They all agreed that the amount of work to date is very impressive and has yielded some great choices for you to consider. First and foremost, my council wants you to know that we want the new courthouse project to succeed, and we wholeheartedly agree that the existing courthouse and related facilities are unsafe, inefficient, and outdated. We want to be a strong partner with the county as you move forward with this critical endeavor. We know that you are trying to move quickly and that this effort has been before you for quite some time. We also intimately understand that real estate matters are very delicate and have to be handled a lot of times off the record, specifically in executive sessions and such. We're well aware of how that works. So sometimes you can't always communicate in a way that is engaging in advance of a decision. While the courthouse project and options have been on our radar at the city, it wasn't until this last Saturday that the full council was able to begin an assessment of the choices and our role as a partner. So the bottom line, on behalf of the city council, I am requesting more time before you make final decisions on the timeline and a preferred site. Like I mentioned earlier, our Land Use and Environment Committee will be meeting on January 24th. After which we expect a full city council briefing and covering aspects of the project and the various areas that we can connect on around a partnership. Like I mentioned, we are looking at potentially $20 to $32 million that the city would need to bring to the table. We don't currently have that amount of money in our budget, and it's not on our capital facilities plan, which is a 6-year planning document. So we would need to do some fast adjustments very quickly to be able to support the downtown site. For certainly the August ballot measure is pretty far out of the realm of possibilities for us, but November, I don't want to give up on a November ballot issue. Like I said, our council's very serious about being a partner, and we understand the economies of scale of partnering on a project, specifically on the downtown site. So that said, we are hoping that you can give us another 2 weeks to come back with a little bit more of a robust support for one of the sites. And let me see what else I needed. I had a question about the funding gap and whether it includes the relocation of the jail portion of our administration. It did. Okay, thank you. And wanted to encourage you as well. We have been very successful in passing ballot measures in Olympia. We do it really really well. And we've got a format that we follow, and one of those is doing I know you did a community a panel that you formed together, and so I'm sure you got feedback there, but we usually go out with a poll amongst our community to find out where their tolerance is for certain amounts of, like in this case, it's a levy lid lift, how many cents per thousand assessed, where's their tolerance in there, and finding out if they understand your story and why you need to replace this facility. So just want to, put that out there as something that's worked for us, and engaging other councils in this, because they're going to need to go out to their communities and tell the story. And I'm glad to see Lacey's here, Councilmember Cox, and so she can go back. But I think we want it to succeed, and we have a formula that really, really works. And so we want to be a partner. And did you have anything else to add, Clark?
That's great.
All right. And I've got my Community Planning and Development Director here, Keith Staley, and so he will as well go back to give a staff feedback. But that's where we are right now.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. So okay, we did the mayor of Olympia.
So maybe we can
Move on to
start
electeds.
from this end.
Yeah.
Maybe John can start. We can pass the microphone, please. And then we just go around the room.
Before it's anything wise, I will check with you first, Mary, to make sure.
Mayor, do you
Proper
have
credit.
a written, Mayor, do you have a written letter?
I do not have a formal
Okay.
We weren't able to pull one together.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Thunheim, go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate the board and staff kind of adjusting the process here to give us an opportunity to express to you what's on our mind and some input on this. I will start off by saying I think we are at a somewhat historic point where and have a somewhat historic opportunity to follow up on the mayor's comments of looking at a really strong partnership between the county and the city of Olympia. There exists in the system, I think, confusion in the public often between the different types of courts and what courts people belong in, and have matters pending in. I know that my folks frequently will have people searching for the municipal court for the city of Olympia and end up in district court instead, or vice versa, because the types of work that those two courts are doing have a lot of similarity. And then just the idea of some shared resources, shared opportunities to partner in terms of our effort and our programming, but then also the idea of co-locating these courts together. So it's really, that is a big factor in terms of kind of driving my thinking around these particular sites myself. I will say that as for this current site, the Hilltop site, all of the options, as I understand it, involve this idea of 4 to 5 year phasing, and that there's considerable effort in terms of navigating through that, trying to keep our program going and all of our services going and maneuver around that. My personal thinking is that's a huge disadvantage to trying to stay on the current location. And frankly, it really, I think, leaves open some ability to realistically estimate cost, because I don't think we necessarily know for sure in a year or 2 years what the cost of the next phase would be. And there's some really good minds that I think have done the best that they possibly can, but I think whenever you're looking at a project that spans that period of time, and I find that to be kind of concerning, and the kind of the limited capacity for growth and everything that goes along with that. So my mind right now is that we should be looking at either the West Side site or the Plum Street site. Each has advantages or disadvantages. There are the Harrison site, for instance. That has an advantage because it'll be close to our Family Justice Center, which will be relocating over by the Capital Medical Center, and so it would give victims coming for services there easy access to the court through there, and then also proximate access to the family juvenile court. But right now, as I sit here right now, I really lean towards the Plum Street site. And I do that because I think for basically the two issues for me that are kind of the drivers for that are, one, the ability to partner that I've talked about with the city of Olympia. And I don't have a good idea of what that looks like, but I know that there are some historic, really, opportunities, and I use that word very deliberately, historic opportunities to do that, because we're kind of both looking for something new at the same time, which doesn't happen often. And I like it for its location in terms of being more centrally located to all county residents, that it's got good freeway access, all of those kinds of logistic things. 1 minute, okay. And I'll just say one of the other things I've always felt about this courthouse is that I think that this community will be more likely to support this program and its financial needs if it sees other secondary benefits. And one of those is the economic development of downtown. And while this is slightly off downtown, and I get that, the city of Tacoma, for instance, has experienced a huge turnaround with its downtown by locating major projects like this in its downtown. And I really think that's another partnership opportunity with the city of Olympia. I've always felt, and I'll say this for the record, that the county should be a partner with the city of Olympia in our efforts to revitalize the Olympia downtown. So for that's the reasons that I'm leaning that way right now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, John. Judge Murphy?
Do you have a written?
Same thing, I didn't have time, but I'm happy to put it as right.
That's fine.
So we have to do that each time. If you have something, or if you can't put it in writing, that would be great for historical recognition.
Because we would like to add all those comments on the final report of the feasibility study. So that's the only reason that I ask. If you haven't done so, please send it my way.
Thank you. Judge Murphy?
So before I say anything, would you like we just very recently,
They have a copy
minutes.
they have a copy of your
Okay,
Supreme
so
Court.
we have extra copies if anyone here didn't get, maybe we could send a few around this table. Okay, we have a few, at any rate. My comments will essentially follow our written input, which is quite short. And I suspect, even though I'm only the second person to talk, that our comments might be somewhat similar, as I have some of the same issues that Prosecutor Thunheim indicated. First of all, Superior Court urges the selection of a site as soon as possible. I recognize the City of Olympia's comments, and I very much appreciate that. As the commissioners probably know, the court has been frustrated with several delays in this project, and specifically delays in communication. And I hope that ends immediately, and that communication really happens more rapidly, especially on the partnering with the City of Olympia. As everyone knows, the courthouse must be located within the City of Olympia, so that partnership is not really optional. It's really vital. So I am hoping that with the mayor's comments today, that communication begins immediately and in strength. I know that there has been some coordination for a long time, and the City of Olympia has had some presence at many of our meetings, but I really think that partnership is necessary no matter what site. And after considering all of the input that you're getting today, that you've gotten in the past, that the consultant has gathered, that you would be able to make a decision as soon as possible, because the current courthouse building, and I'm talking about Building 2 specifically, although it applies, I know, in other contexts to others, but with regard to Building 2, the building is unsafe and is wasting money as we speak. The shared hallways, lack of jury assembly room, inadequate space, failing infrastructure, and expensive and inadequate maintenance make the building unsafe for all users, including staff and the public. There is a heightened risk of mistrials which have occurred, as well as litigation, criminal and civil cases are delayed or bumped every single week due to lack of space. No amount of remodeling of Building 2 would make it safe, according to the experts hired by the commissioners to provide input on security and the current buildings. Necessary repairs and maintenance on the current buildings wastes money because the building remains inadequate and repairs cannot address the most important need, which is security. Continuing to utilize an inadequate and unsafe building risks harm to all users of the current buildings, including staff and jurors, which is near and dear to my heart, but also exposes the county to litigation. I understand the urge for delay. I would strongly urge the commissioners, if a delay is necessary, to set a very specific timeline, goals, and an action plan for any delay that you deem necessary, so that it is a very active delay with very short time frames in order to meet the current schedule. The court has long urged the county to work with the city, and I know that some of that coordination has occurred, and I appreciate that, but I really want that to continue in earnest. Superior Court supports the selection of the site most likely to be successful in raising the necessary funds by a vote of the people. I've said this many different ways on behalf of the court. The commissioners should select the site most likely to win the voters. That is for many reasons, and I won't go into it in detail. It is in my written document. I do want to urge the court, or excuse me, urge the commissioners, when thinking about other input, like Mr. O'Connor's input with regard to indigent folks who use the court, that those needs of people who lack resources applies to crime victims, to civil litigants, and to all people involved in using our court. And so put that into perspective. Public support should be the #1 consideration, and I think that that makes the choice obvious.
Thank you, Judge. Stephen?
And I do have some copies. So to make best use of my limited time and get through this for the benefit of the public, I'm going to read it as quickly as I can, and then I have a few comments. As the elected assessor for Thurston County, I have been supportive of replacement of the county campus, primarily as a result of the fact that building number 3, which houses our courts, has significant security risks which cannot be adequately addressed in the existing structure. In studying the issue, I came to the conclusion that a substantial waste of public funds would occur if the entire courthouse complex was not renewed and integrated with the new court facilities. While I do support going to the voters for the funding needed to build a new facility, several of the options being considered have me deeply concerned. As it stands, my office space, its relationship to other offices we work closely with, and its proximity to employee parking and fleet parking allow my staff to perform our statutory obligations efficiently and reasonably safely. In reviewing the various options, I seek to retain these efficiencies while improving building security. So then I looked at the three, I'll refer to them as jurisdictions for options, so I divided into 3. The hilltop options 1 to 5. All of these options call for a 4 to 5 year construction period, and most require more than one relocation. The reality is, this would mean 4 to 5 years of traffic and safety issues for employees and the public, power outages, relocated employee parking, which would drive loss of labor time, and would combine to cause substantial loss of productivity, reduced customer service, and missed statutory deadlines. Even if I believed that my staff would be increased by at least 3, including cars and equipment, we would have no place to put these employees. They would need to be hired and trained a year ahead of time to earn accreditation, and then most would be laid off after the move-in. All of this amounts to waste, which can be avoided by selecting another option. So I do not favor the Hilltop options. Harrison Avenue options 1 and 2. As is the case with the Plum Street options, the Harrison options offer a common lobby where security screening occurs for both buildings, and offices would experience only one carefully planned move while remaining undisturbed during construction. These factors set the Harrison Avenue options apart from all of the Hilltop options. What causes the options at this site to fail for me is the fact that it is farther from the 3 major city centers and would drive other tax-paid costs in order to provide new transit capacity outside of downtown Olympia. In addition, this would cause Olympia to build a standalone replacement for its aging courthouse facility, adding to the tax burden for Olympia residents. In addition, the land for these proposals would have to be purchased at a cost estimated at $5 million. All of these factors likely combine to make this the most expensive site to select when viewed as a taxpayer. In addition, by moving this facility further from population it serves, the public will spend more time and consume more fuel to conduct business with the county. When the public fully understands these factors, support for ballot measure to support this location will be substantially harmed. And then finally, the Plum Street options 1 and 2. These options move the Thurston County Courthouse and Civic Center where it should have been all along, in downtown Olympia. Both options have common lobby for security screening. Both proposals offer workable proximity between offices and both fleet and employee parking. This location is already served by major transit and is more accessible to the downtowns of Lacey, Tumwater, Olympia, and the South County. In addition, this will revitalize an underdeveloped area of the downtown by bringing a steady flow of customers to downtown shops, restaurants, and other businesses. Co-locating Olympia's municipal courts in this facility will provide Olympia taxpayers a less expensive solution to the city's pending capital needs and consume less property for government services. All of these factors should make this site far more desirable to the voters who must first approve the funding for this project to move forward. So those are my written comments, and I would amplify the comments of my colleagues. I appreciate the process and how difficult this decision is, and I share a real concern about the timeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Judge Buckley.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutchings. As a reminder, in 2004, the county recognized the need for a new courthouse, and at that time put before the voters a ballot initiative for general obligation bonds in the amount of $88 million to locate a courthouse over at the Mottman industrial area near where Family Court is currently located today. That ballot measure was defeated significantly by probably over 20 points on the voting results. Recognizing that the need, which was seen in 2004, hasn't gone away. In fact, it's increased. Judge Murphy and I, for the better part of the last 5 years, have been like voices in the wilderness, crying out to not forget the need. And I am gratified that we are now here today at this point with the energy put in by the commissioners, the county staff, and the electeds, and the city, and all other interested parties to reach the point where something, in my mind, will actually happen. So I appreciate the work of all those. And I want to acknowledge Ron Thomas and Rick Thomas, the Thomas brothers, not related, who have done yeoman work in giving us the facts necessary upon which to evaluate sites and make decisions. So well done to both of them. So let me point out what I've just said, which is in 2004, the ballot initiative was $88 million. Realistically, in 2019, we're going to look at a ballot initiative somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 million. If we delay, that's only going up. It's only going up every day and every week and every year that we delay. If we put this decision off to some other council, to some other time, we continue to incur increasing costs, and we need to look no further than the delay from 2004 to 2019. Judge Murphy indicated that, in her view, the #1 consideration ought to be electability, and I heartily endorse that. The efforts that everybody have brought to the table in the last couple of years will go for naught if this does not succeed at the ballot. So we need to, everything we do needs to be geared towards that result. I think that, as Judge Murphy indicates, points directly at one site, and that's the downtown site, and I'll share why. I believe, first of all, what Prosecutor Thunheim said is, which it gives us a historic opportunity to show the citizens of Thurston County that government can work together to achieve a project which benefits all of the residents of Thurston County. The county courthouse belongs in the downtown core of Olympia. That's where it ought to be a centerpiece, and it was a mistake to build it up here 40 years ago. Building it here again will just double down on that same mistake. Putting it downtown will address the issue Judge Murphy spoke about access to the courts. We continue to have issues between municipal court and district court, and this site is difficult for other parties to reach as well. The economic development possibilities are greatest at the downtown site, and I think the electability opportunities are the greatest at the downtown site, and I would urge the commissioners to consider all those factors. Thank you very much for the work.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you for submitting your comments in writing, too. Appreciate that. Jeff Gadman.
Thank you. And I do have copies of an outline here, and I'll distribute at the break because I don't have enough for everybody. Sorry. Fiscal responsibility. So I too want to thank the Thomases for their diligence in helping us work through options and stuff. And I got to say, at the beginning of the process, I was absolutely convinced that the only locations that made any sense were the three options we had downtown. And then looking at those three options, narrowing it down to the one that is still on the table just because of financial logistics. Then 2 or 3 months ago, I started thinking about it, and I really started to see the merits of the Harrison Avenue site. It's a blank slate. It offers the biggest opportunity for future economic development in terms of complementary development to the courthouse. And then, of course, we've got this site up here, too, which is just a huge mistake. I mean, the electrical infrastructure up here is at capacity and unreliable. My understanding is PSE says there's no way to really cure it without a huge expenditure. So I can't imagine putting a newer building with a bigger power load demand on it would be wise. The other thing is, I remember when I was in my early teens and this building was being built, the biggest criticism of this site was, why are they locating the courthouse out of town? People want their courthouse downtown. And really, since the courthouse is the people's house, it makes sense. So what do we have in favor of the downtown site? Really good transit, real easy access. We got to remember that most of the customers we have in this building in all of these buildings up here. They're not middle class or upper middle class or rich. They need to rely on public transit. They need to rely on other means of transportation. They need to have the courthouse close to where they live so that if they do have to drive, it uses less fuel to get there. So I think keeping that in mind, that points to that site being the most favorable. The fact that we get to co-locate with one of our government partners so that we provide even less demand on people for getting to services, I think is an awesome thing. The site is ready to go. I understand that there's some, the city would like us to delay a decision, but I think we've kicked the can down the road long enough. It's time to make a decision, get in front of the voters while it's still fresh in their minds. If we drag this out too long, they're going to lose their taste for it. So my vote is would be to put it at the downtown site.
Thank you, sir. Linda, why don't you go ahead while the sheriff sets up.
Thank you for this opportunity. I want to ditto what Judge Murphy and John Thunheim have commented on and support what they have already said. I just want to go on record and say that I also support the site that will be approved by the voters, most likely. I think that is the most important decision that needs to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
You can pass it that way. I'll wait until after the comments.
Mary.
Thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak today. And, you know, for the longest time I said I really didn't care where the courthouse went. But then I tried to look at each location through the eyes of my customers. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Deja vu, yeah.
I think there are a couple things that are really important to me, and I think the first thing is accessibility. We really need to be accessible to the voters and to the customers. I am all about customer service in my operation here in Building 1. You know, currently our ballot processing center is in Tumwater, which makes it very, very inefficient. I would love to have everybody located in one building. I think that's very important from an efficiency standpoint. You know, currently I'm at Mottman, I'm in Building 1, and Financial Services is in Building 4. And what I can't do because of that is I can't pull some of my managers when we get hit really hard and we need extra help for just 4 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, which I could do if we were all under one facility in close proximity to each other. But I think the most important thing is to have a central location for my customers, registered voters, people who want to come in for passports, people who want to come in and renew their boat or car tabs. That I think is the most important thing when I consider a location. And of course, where's the most central place in the county of our choices? It's Plum Street. There's no doubt about that. I also have to be very aware of the disability community and how they can access my facility on election day, and specifically election night. It's not very easy to get up here, and I have to be open for voting until 8 p.m. on election night. This summer, we're going to be implementing same-day voter registration, and that is awesome. So people can register online, but only up until 8 days before the election. After 8 days, they have to come into my office. So we're going to see an incredible amount of traffic from 8 days prior to election day. And it concerns me greatly to be located someplace as far away as Kaiser. Even though I think that's a beautiful space, it would be a blank slate, we could do a lot to it. But I feel like I would be disenfranchising voters, which is why I really do not support that site any longer. If we did locate the courthouse at Kaiser, I really would have no other choice but to open another voting center for 18 days prior to the election, and currently I don't have the staff to do that. I have 8 full-time staff members, and that includes a manager and a supervisor, which means I would have staff split between my ballot processing center, which is in full swing during that time, dealing with voter registration in this new courthouse and a voting center that would have to be located someplace central so my voters with disabilities or people of limited resources would be able to come in, register to vote, and vote. So I think that is my biggest concern of locating it any place other than downtown, which already has the infrastructure and the transportation structure in place. So thank you very much for the opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you, Marie. Now we go to Sheriff John.
Madam Mayor, did you want to go first? I've already done my Okay. First off, I want to apologize for my lateness. In reviewing all of the sites, the Sheriff's Office isn't really, the full complement of the Sheriff's Office is not there. Where I have storage unit requiring about 75,000 square feet of just storage space and office space. None of those sites require it. So I don't think it'd really be fair for me to really comment on any of the sites because of that. And so I think that with the electeds, it'll be fun to see everybody out there proposing whatever site that is selected, seeing every elected get out there and say this is why we want it. Because right now we're speaking about it, but I hope that every elected and everyone that signed all these papers suggesting where they want to go are out there telling the citizens why they want what they want. Because this is a heavy load and it's going to require every elected to get out there and request this along with the group of individuals that have been part of this site selection committee and part of the involvement of this to be out there and support why we're asking for what we're asking for. And that's all I'm asking, is that I hope it isn't just one or two electeds out there saying why we need what we need. And I know that I might be talking old school here, and I was probably about 4 years old when it happened. But when this site was built here, all 3 county commissioners were not reelected. So I really think that if we're going to do it, we really need to, this is just John Snodder speaking, that we really need to be very supportive of all the electeds and everyone who is supporting this as to why it's so important to be there. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Sheriff. Is that true? Okay. Am I missing any elected out in the audience that wishes to speak? Oh, Lacey. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I just can't see everybody.
Well, if I may, since City of Lacey representative is here, would you like to state something?
No, I got the head shake, no. The same from Nathaniel.
Okay, thank you.
But I do appreciate the comment also about engaging all the cities as well. We'll need help. We'll need help. Now we're going to transition into the department directors.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
That's correct. And
so we'll have to have a space open for directors to come up. Do we have any directors here besides Patrick?
Yeah.
Oh, we have Shelley here and Josh? Okay.
Marianne?
Marianne, okay, good. Whew. Thank you. Give us a chance to catch up. And you ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's start with
Shelley.
Shelley.
All right.
Do you have a written?
I do, and I'll provide it to you right after.
And introduce yourself. So we didn't do the introductions. I think when you were here, you didn't hit the back.
I am Shelley Slaughter. I'm Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And I want to say thank you for the opportunity to provide the comment on the Civic Center Courthouse project site on behalf of my department. I support the Commissioner's decision and technical experts' analysis on selecting the most appropriate site to provide improved access to co-located comprehensive county services and safety to all of our citizens, employees, and government partners. Considering the budget, environmental impacts, which are very important to our department, and timeline. I believe that sites in which development would proceed most quickly with minimal environmental impacts would have the most opportunities for consolidation and collaboration would be the most desirable. While I know you are considering sites the site specifically and not necessarily programs and services. I think considering capacity to provide enhanced program services is important. So I wanted to have the board consider including services currently offered at 412 Lily Road, which is the Thurston County Public Health and Social Services main location in plans in order to enhance consolidated one-stop services to the public. Currently, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services are split between Building 1 here at this current Lake Ridge facility and Lily Road, and citizens are often confused where they need to go to obtain services and must go to both sites. Services at Lily Road that could be offered in the new complex include vital records, birth and death certificates, which could work closely with the auditor's office and their new passport program, because in order to obtain a passport, they often need a birth certificate and must go to both locations. In addition, we provide food establishment permits and technical support to many restaurants and businesses throughout the community, specialized recreation services in which citizens come to sign up for programs, and other environmental health services such as water quality and our lab that's located at this building that would need to be included in the new facility that provides services to the municipalities as well. And our land use, and it's currently split between the Building Development Center and Lily Road. There are also further opportunities to offer enhanced health and social services at the new complex in partnership with other departments and elected offices that would greatly benefit our citizens, particularly co-location and proximity to vulnerable citizens in need of additional services such as housing, domestic violence, mental health, substance use, and veteran services. Cost savings could be achieved with employee and citizen time and travel, as well as considering the value of the Lily Road asset to offset costs of the new project. Should the plans include only partial co-location or no change in services at Lily Road, that would be fine too. But close proximity to the new complex would be the most efficient and desirable then, in my opinion. I would also recommend considering the new site's capacity for future growth, innovative public-private partnerships, and the potential provision of on-site childcare for employees and citizens accessing services at the Courthouse Civics Complex, which would greatly benefit all the departments and offices, the citizens, and enhance economic development. So thank you for your consideration of this important project, and I look forward to supporting it no matter what site is selected. And I believe it will modernize and improve our services to the citizens and enhance the health, safety, security, and well-being of everyone.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Since the mic's down that way, we'll go to Mary Ann next. If you'll introduce yourself first. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide my input. As with what many of the elected said earlier, actually, I didn't introduce myself. My name's Mary Ann Clear. I'm the Director for Pretrial Services.
Thank you.
And as what many of the elected said earlier, access is a very important issue for pretrial services. Most of the individuals that we serve are court-ordered, and so that means they are required to be in our office. And if they don't show up to our office, then they are in violation of their court order, which could result in a violation that could get a warrant for their arrest, and then they could end up back in custody in the Thurston County Jail. So because of that, access is very important for them. The downtown site is available for bus line. Other sites may not. This site here is, but I don't know that because of business process reasons that this site is a good facility. I focus more on downtown, co-locating downtown, and the opportunity for collaboration, as John and other electeds said earlier, is a great opportunity to work together and to show the community that we do work together. We have a lot of the same needs. So I would focus on downtown as a site. That is my main focus in looking at that. Focusing on community safety, just looking at pretrial services, that's what we do. Monitoring those individuals in the community and helping them get to court. If they don't have transportation, a lot of that is public transportation, then that's not necessarily a reason to show up here. They are important individuals in the community, and so some people will end up taking Uber, and public transportation, not being on the bus line, but that's not available to everyone. And so I think that as we make the selection for the site, that we should look at all of those options. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Come down here to Josh.
Hello, Commissioners. Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, CPED. I'll provide the comments in writing to the County Manager after this meeting. Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development, CPED, provides a number of services to the citizens of Thurston County. Building permits and plans reviews for properties in the rural community and the urban growth area, as well as community engagement on topics relating to the Growth Management Act and planning for the future land uses of our county, including many meetings that take place at night. CPED's main missions fall under Strategic Initiatives number 6 and number 7 of the Thurston County Strategic Plan. Number 6, to proactively shape a strong, diverse economy that provides equitable access to opportunity. And number 7, balanced development with the preservation of the county's rural character, natural areas, and open spaces. With these considerations, the most important aspect of a new courthouse to CPED is that we can continue to provide positive and efficient customer service to the citizens of Thurston County. The site and building that is selected should be safe, accessible, and sustainable over the coming decades. Thank you for your time and opportunity to provide this perspective. Joshua Cummings.
Thank you, Josh. And Patrick.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, I echo the other department heads and the electeds, and I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to weigh in. My perspective is through the lens of the department that I run, and that's the Public Defender's Office. And my lens is the perspective of the clients and the community that we serve here in Thurston County. It's not a personal opinion as to what the best site is. It is through the lens of my clients. The number one issue our clients face is poverty and the barriers associated with poverty. So in my review of the site selection, I really geared towards which site had the highest transit score. Having practiced here in Thurston County for a long time, I echo what has already been said as a barrier for heavy users of the court system. And those barriers come at costs. They come at cost to the county when there's an inability to make mandatory court appearances that are principally early in the morning. And so those who have to take connecting buses from rural Thurston County to the city face those challenges. My second kind of lens from the population that we serve are what's already been stated as historical opportunity to co-locate with the city of Olympia. There's unforeseen cost savings with co-locating those two jurisdictions, those court systems. The clients that we serve have court hearings in the city of Olympia, sometimes at the same time as they have court here in Thurston County, or they're in the Olympia Municipal Jail and Thurston County issues a warrant for their arrest, and on and on and on. Almost too many examples to cite. But that opportunity to co-locate with the city of Olympia is a great benefit to the criminal justice system in the Thurston County, not just for my clients. And lastly, which was just mentioned from my perspective, is the site that has the greatest proximity to social services that my clients use and that they heavily rely on. The site that offers the greatest value for the community that we serve to make direct connections to social services is the site that we support. And I've put that in writing. I didn't bring copies for everybody. But again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And now, we can take kind of a collective deep breath. First hour is over. We'll take a break until 3:05. That gives us about 12, 10, 12, you do the math. Give us sufficient break, and then we'll come back, and then the commissioners will destroy equipment, and then we'll benefit from a discussion. Thank you very much. See you in a few minutes. to the Courthouse Civic Center discussion or input. And as people get seated, thank you very much for your involvement and engagement this morning, and your written comment as well. And I'm going to turn to Romero to go ahead and frame this piece of the meeting.
Thank you, Commissioners. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, the intent of this portion of the meeting is just to have a discussion among yourselves. I strongly encourage you not to get to the point of eliminating one site, nor favoring one site. I think it is a great idea for the public to hear the first time from your perspective, based on everything that we've heard from the technical point of view, from your elected officials and the appointment directors, to hear from you the pros and cons, the benefits, the gaps that each site offer from your perspective. And along the way, here staff is ready to answer any questions for you in this upcoming hour. And really that is the gist of this conversation. It is not intended for you to make a decision today. And again, I schedule an executive session with you next Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. And at that point, staff will offer additional information related to the financial strategies that you may consider in association with the 3 technical information that you have received so far. So with that in mind, you know, I like to probably maybe start engaging you in that conversation. And let me begin with this information that all of you have received. Hopefully this is the synopsis of all the different options. And so I will ask staff to take some notes in terms of your feedback. And again, this is not open conversation with the audience. It's a conversation for you, among yourselves. And if you seek any clarification, the staff is here to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards?
I just made a statement. I'm just trying to clarify something. You just said this is all of our options. Is this the 3 final locations?
The 3 final locations.
Okay,
this is the 3 locations.
Maybe you had something there, 12 options.
No. In each location, Each location, as you recall, have many different options as to how this could be happening. So let me begin with, I'm going to use this, just option 1, which is the Hilltop campus. What are I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you have any opening statement before we get going? Okay, go ahead.
So let's begin with the Hilltop campus. From your perspective, what are the pros and cons that you see on what you've heard so far?
Well, I don't know if I'm ready to start right there, but we can be there. I'm curious about the statement the mayor made about the $30 million commitment you potentially might be up against. Is that only if the site is selected for downtown at the Plum Street? So there would be no partnering at any other location, say with municipal court or maybe a holding cell or anything like that? Okay.
Can he ask me questions and can I answer?
No, because you don't have the microphone. You have a thermos.
I'd also like to note that Councilmate Nathaniel Jones has joined us at the table. We don't have a quorum, but there's 3 of us here. Many ears help relay messages, so that's great. So it hasn't ever been discussed to do any kind of co-location outside of the downtown. It wouldn't make sense for us to move our services out of our downtown, the court services. So we wouldn't be able to join in on any kind of funding for Harrison or up here.
Well, not that I'm making a decision or anything, but just thinking way off into the future. You know, you go to Las Vegas, there's Old Town and New Town. There's the waterfront, and there's a downtown.
There's definitely district.
Not Las Vegas, obviously, but.
Do you have any comment regarding Hilltop?
No, the Hilltop for me is one of the detriments of the Hilltop. We definitely have to cut some trees up here. And we don't have to do that down on Plum Street. So I don't know, that was a big issue one time when we talked about parking up here. I couldn't believe it. About half the folks just about went into cardiac arrest when I mentioned we might have to cut some trees to expand parking. But no, I'm very, very interested in input from all parties concerned. I am very concerned about the mayor's position about an extension in time to discuss other things. So I'm not going to get into where I'm at. It'll almost give it away if I'm not supposed to expose my position at this point in time. But I am sympathetic to the mayor's point of view on, do we need a little more time, because Olympia is going to be an integral partner of ours as we move forward in whatever we do. If we don't select downtown, there's going to be zoning issues and some other things that need to be addressed that'll take a cooperative effort. So,
perhaps any benefits that you see from this particular option, or any pitfalls?
well, if I had to say pitfalls, somebody made mention that we're compounding a 40-year mistake if we stay here. But in reality, can we afford to go elsewhere? There could be other issues that come up, but I don't think we're going to remodel this. We've got a foyer area out there. Maybe we could go up. A lot of different options. I'm not there yet to discuss where I'm going exactly with it. You asked me not to, and I'm going to stay away from it for a while.
Fair enough.
Commissioner Benson?
Well, just as an anecdote, I mean, I came here in 2007 as an attorney, and first thing I had to do is come here, and I thought from the very first day I moved here, why is the courthouse here? And to think that I would be, you know, a dozen years later deciding to build a brand new complex here is hard for me to fathom. The concerns I think that are most concerning to me are just the timeline, the delay. I mean, as somebody that practiced law here and was here every day, I can't imagine what, I guess I'm overly sensitive to the court staff and the judges and the litigants' concerns about parking, and I didn't, in all the presentations, it hasn't been really clear to me how, if we've figured out how we would do business as a courthouse for the at least 2 years that it would take to, is what I heard from the presentation, there'd be at least a 2-year period where court business would not be done in any kind of way that we're used to. And then to have a 4 to 5 year project versus 2 years, I mean, I just think there's a whole range of problems associated with that. So those are my big concerns about Hilltop. The advantage is just simply that people know it's here. It's not, I mean, there's always, whenever you do something new, there's people that don't like change, and they complain about, I heard plenty from the West Side folks when I went to the public outreach that, you know, they don't want, a lot of neighbors don't want something like that, but that's true with any new project in a new place. The advantage is you don't have to worry about that here, but to me that's a pretty small advantage unless somebody can articulate a bigger one, you know, for Hilltop.
Well, because these are our comments, this is why we're not serving food at this function. When I was writing down, okay, what are some of the advantages? And the only one I can think of is exactly what you said, Ty, and that was familiarity. People know it's here, but familiarity breeds contempt, or can. And negative, I come up with a list of negatives. One is, in the wintertime, like now, we have to deal with only one ingress and egress because we shut down Lake Ridge. And it's always been a pain to me, because I know it's a pain to jurors, it's a pain to our customers, and many of you folks spoke of customer service. And we have to, not appease, but we have to accommodate our customers because they pay the bills. And so we need to make this as easy and accessible as we can, and shutting down one major ingress is, or even egress, is not functional. I agree it's expensive. It takes exceeding amount of time to build in several stages. And in that, we lose the continuity of government. We displace our employees. And in that, there's going to be some compromised security issues, disruption to the customers. And so I see a lot of negatives. I see far more negatives than just, oh, people know we're here. And it's easy for me to get in and out, from where I live. I'm used to this route now. So regarding Hilltop, and at first 2 years ago, I thought, yeah, why wouldn't we stay here? This is great. But where's Mary? I've changed my perspective of this thing, several times. It's like my head's been in a Veg-O-Matic. But that's where I'm at, is far more negatives than positives to remain here. Yeah.
I'd say my biggest concern is the security of the courts and the court functions. And I would very much like to see the courts coordinate with municipal courts, not only Olympia, but even the other municipalities that have court functions. We coordinate some of those and do those through an agreement now, and handles, I guess, Tumwaters and Lacey's, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the court security in general is a nightmare, having brought a lot of prisoners up and down the halls, moved them in and out of trials, all of that. My sympathies are for the courts more than us workers of just being here. Office work is one thing. The courts are something completely different. Mm-hmm. And having an adequate holding facility to deal with trials and all of that type of activity is a big piece of that. We've had a history in the past where we've had officers that have been assaulted during movement, and so that's probably my biggest concern as to why we need to make a change more than anything else. The mayor talked about her ability for success in the past on voter issues. I'm rather disappointed that we didn't do a poll. And I think a poll has merit. I think when you go out to communities and hold open houses, you get input. But you've got a group with a interest. They've got a self-interest that are participating. I mean, the legal community, I understand where they're coming from. But I'm talking to people in rural America, and this is on the courthouse altogether. They're not very thrilled about the possibility of a $300 million project. And I really feel it's probably realistically a $300 million project.
Ramiro has an answer to that, about the poll.
Related to the polling, and I think we have to be looking in terms of the public outreach. And I believe the mayor stated taking the temperature of the electorate is different than asking the public whether you will be voting for this particular venture or not, because that will be crossing the line, because that will consider to be a vote. Yeah. But I believe that after the decision is made and on a side, then we have to be laser focused in developing a consistent message. And we have to be laser focused as to how we're going to be approaching the public and selling the need and selling the solution to that need. Within the whole context, there is a lot of work that needs to be done after this decision is made on a single point, on a single focus, for the public to understand what is it that we're trying to do. But the polling, I think, is something that we need to explore on a different perspective, perhaps.
And going to what you said, Ty will have a perspective on this, I know. I agree that the courthouse is the major driver of this, because so doggone many systems bump into the court. Because you've got the jail, you've got corrections, you have the sheriff, you've got the clerk's office, you've got pretrial, and I can't name them all, but there's a ton of interactions with jurors and such in and out of the courthouse, and it's I don't know if it's the most, but I would probably say it is. Of the safety concerns, it's the highest risk, perhaps, and so that needs to be addressed. more so, they all do, to keep all of our employees safe, but I think more so in the court than other offices. I think you're more vulnerable, just the emotional issue of court. So I agree with you from that perspective that the court really drives this. I don't mean you're driving the whole process, but the safety issue in the court, those needs have to be addressed up front. Public defense as well.
So perhaps within your thought process, I think all three of you have been consistent in terms of addressing the needs of the court, security, and everything else in the process. Related to the other services that we provide to the citizens, how do you see the Hilltop providing those services? We have the assessor, the treasurer, we have the planning, we have other services that we provide to the citizens. How do you see, from your perspective, the Hilltop site?
Nowhere to park.
Yeah, we can't even accommodate jury selection.
Terrible. Yeah, it's absolutely, it's customer service is in the tank when it comes to parking.
I mean, and again, I have a perspective because I did move here from out of the region, and I remember trying to, like if my wife had to meet, like trying to explain to someone how to get here, and to have streets that are Lake Ridge Drive and Lake Ridge, we have the same name streets crossing each other in this circle up here on this hilltop area. It's just, I don't think there's a public service. If that's what we're talking about, it's poor, and that would apply to county administration as well as people looking for their court date. If you tried to explain to somebody how to get to the auditor's office to get a passport, you'd have trouble doing that easily.
And not knowing what a new configuration would look like until we get to that phase or stage, I envision somebody walking in and there's people, and you walk in and say, hey, I need, like City Hall, Olympia City Hall, you have your customer service right up front. Hey, I need this. Okay, go upstairs. I need this. Go down the hall. I need this. Go down that hall. Here we have wayfinding. We got signs and whatnot. But nobody reads signs. So I'm constantly, and I'm not out in the vest or the foyer that often, but people always ask me, where's the sheriff's office? And I don't know. I tell them, of course. But where's the assessor? Which building? Is this the court? Is this Superior Court? Yes. You want? Well, I want District Court. Okay. They don't know. So it's confusing. It's not user friendly currently as it is. Even though they're familiar with it, they're not finding their way around easily enough. And it's frustrating. And in the anger escalation, if someone's confused, you can unconfuse them by giving them information. If they are not confused, if they don't leave that state of confusion, they become frustrated, then become angry. So the basic thing is make it easy for customers to come in and find where to go.
I want to say one more thing about Hilltop that I forgot to mention, is that several of our elected officials talked about, whether they talked about bringing economic development or some other aspect to it for its own sake, or whether it's about the marketing and the politics and the vote. There was a sense that if we're going to spend this kind of money, and for the marketing piece of it, we should bring as much to the table as we possibly can. And this site, I think, does the least in that regard. I mean, an argument can be made that in the west side, you open up this, this opportunity for this, and then bringing, revitalizing downtown. Those two arguments have some sense to them. There is no such extra piece to rebuilding here. There's nothing the community's going to get out of it except a new court. And I think Judge Buckley has been consistent talking about that since I first heard these presentations 5 years ago about how we would want to package the most value to our community for the money that we're asking them to spend. And so I think on that parameter, which is an important one and was articulated several times, Hilltop would be 3rd out of 3.
And with that in mind, though, if we were downtown currently and we're looking to move, that would leave a huge economic void downtown. So by leaving here, I'm wondering what economic void or negative impact would be surrounded here, because I'm not sure how many people that visit the courthouse or do business with the courthouse say, hey, we're on the west side, let's go buy a car. I'm not sure there will be a negative or that big of a negative impact to this community up here by moving a courthouse. I'm not sure there's a downside to that.
Any additional thoughts on the Hilltop option? So let's move to the Plum Street, and the same question for you in terms of Any benefits, any opportunities, gaps, pitfalls that you see on the Plum Street?
You're looking for the positive at this point,
No,
right?
anything that you like to share.
Negative or positive?
Positive or negative. This is just to hear for everyone in the room as well as the public to hear your perspective on each of the sides, positive or negative, without getting to the point of showing your cards in a way. How
You want to start?
Sure.
I think we all want to chime in.
Whatever. I truly think that 40 years ago, downtown would have been the ideal location. I don't know, maybe just down the block from the courthouse that was left would have been, you know, an ideal location. Now, this whole homeless issue, if you go out and ask citizens in rural America, they'll tell you they don't want to come to Olympia anymore. Now, so I'm kind of talking about that 500-pound gorilla in the room nobody wants to mention. But come our first warm April day, downtown is going to stink something like you've never smelt before. I truly believe that. I was encouraged by the mayor's remarks earlier at the chamber event, recognizing that we just can't keep enabling these folks to, so they're encouraged to come here. We've got a monumental problem on our hands. 30 tents last summer, I think, and 300 now. And that is a serious problem. Then you got Mother Nature creeping up on us, which is the sea level rising or is it not rising? And the expense of a potential seawall. Again, that's something about $300 million if that was to take place. Are we really going to build a facility that is going to be a 100-year facility? Realizing we can put that on pilings. But what about the whole complete downtown area? What is going to happen down there if a seawall isn't successful, if we have that sea level rise? My family's been here for 150 years. I can tell you the climate's changing because we used to cut ice off the lake I live on, Lawrence Lake, and put it in an ice house. That was the refrigeration, and the ice was that deep. It hasn't froze over like that in 50 years or more. So times are changing. So we need to address all that. I think that Judge Murphy made a pretty good comment when she said that we need to select a site that will pass the muster of the voters. They're the ones that need to make the decision. We can cheerlead that decision, but boy, what I'm getting out in rural America, and it's from people that generally don't have courthouse business anyway. They tell me, well, they used to go downtown, but they're not going anymore. No, I don't want my mom to go downtown. It is a major problem. I've been spending, for the last month, a lot of time talking to the businesses in downtown. They just don't know if they're even going to be able to succeed. It's getting pretty bad. I'm painting a pretty bleak picture, but those are the downsides. 40 years ago, it would have been great. 15 years ago, it would have been great. But I don't see until this problem gets solved a bond issue passing in downtown Olympia when the public is taking their point of view right now, and I don't know how to change that. If they take a drive through town come June, I don't think they're going to be very impressed. It is going to smell bad. I've got a grandson that works downtown. He's low man on the totem pole, so he gets to do poop patrol every morning. He's out there cleaning up poop, spraying down the doorways, and I don't think there's much coverage in the general public that, I don't know, it's almost like let's not talk about it and maybe it'll go away. So I see it as a major problem for downtown. I think it is the ideal location if other things were ideal, which they're not right now. So that's kind of the downside of my downtown view.
Would you like to highlight the benefits of this particular site?
Or did you?
If we could if we could revisit history and do something differently, I think there are benefits. But I just don't see them today.
Well, and I disagree with my seatmate. I think a bond measure still would pass or might pass downtown, regardless. But I am encouraged by you, Gary, saying we have a monumental problem on our hand. You didn't say they. You said we.
Oh, it's a
and this is something
regional problem.
We're jumping into with 6 feet or 8 feet, whatever. We're jumping into this issue to help resolve a lot of issues downtown. But you want to go ahead?
Well, just on that point, I mean, I would take issue with the characterization that people are saying, let's not talk about it. The city of Olympia is doing nothing but talking about it, and they're working really hard. And in the newspaper and all the meetings that I go to, it's #1 on people's minds. I think the whole community is talking about this issue, and this project can help be part of the solution potentially in terms of revitalizing downtown and trying to invest in it and commit to it, because we're not going to let this problem go away. We're not all going to sit around and let downtown Olympia go to pot or whatever you want to say. I mean, we're all going to work on this till it's solved, and hopefully it only takes a few years. Maybe it'll take longer, but we're going to keep working on it. And so I think that's the perspective that I bring to that particular question.
And I agree that I think the potentiality of putting it downtown might help in many ways more than detract or add to the problem. But my concerns with downtown are not Olympia's unwillingness to cooperate, but their inability to cooperate. And I'd say your inability to cooperate with the city from the standpoint of the 20 to 30 million, putting a decision off for a couple months, not knowing what transpired in or not a couple weeks rather, not knowing what's going to transpire in a couple weeks, not knowing if we have any, what's the price of the property, are we going to be allowed some variances? There's a lot of things that could actually be deal breakers, and I'm not comfortable making a decision until I get all the information. We've been asking for that for quite some time. And the size of the jail, those types of things need to really be hammered out. And so those are some of the downfalls, not your unwillingness. I don't want to be taken the wrong way, but the ability to catch up in a timely fashion to get a lot of those answers for us. So we have that to consider. But I also consider, when I talked about customer service and the maintaining the continuity of government, there's going to be a major disruption downtown with all the folks there in the Lee Creighton Justice Center having to be displaced, and the homeless folks having to be displaced because they're customers too. And I just need to be assured that all that is going to be able to be mitigated one way or the other to maintain the continuity of government. It's going to cost you a fortune, that type of stuff. Those are my concerns with downtown.
This is kind of segueing ahead of your schedule to West Side, but just on this particular point, a lot of what I heard about, I'll call it West Side or Harrison, is that it doesn't really work without a lot of transportation upgrades and this potential freeway overpass, which again is another thing completely out of our control. Just Olympia's sitting right there. That feels a little more in my control than the idea that the Department of whoever, transportation or the state, is going to finish a freeway interchange. Yeah. So if that project's dependent on that thing out of my control versus this, those are both sides have that potential issue of a thing out of our control.
And I wonder, it was mentioned several times, even by the treasurer, about economic development. And I don't know what more economic development might occur in that bubble of downtown at 8th and Plum. And I hate to say downtown. When I think of downtown, I think of State Street and 4th Street between the bridges and Plum. But so I think of this as outside that downtown core, but it's considered downtown. I don't know what further economic development might happen there by virtue of having a courthouse downtown, other than the restaurants will get busier and maybe someone will buy a chair from Creative Office Supply or something. I'm not sure what I know there'll be benefit, and it's beneficial to the employees because they've got the places to go eat, they got places to go shop, as opposed to the West Side, where there's huge opportunities for economic development up on the West Side.
its highest and best use.
Okay,
So that's where the growth potential is.
okay. So let's, do you want to have more to say about downtown?
Any additional benefits that you see from the Plum Street? I know that both of you highlighted that perhaps bringing this project to downtown could probably lead to, you know, a positive influence to the homeless issues that we're currently facing. So any other benefits that you see from this particular location in terms of services, access, or anything that you can probably outline?
Just real quick, something that was in the summary study that I don't think anybody really mentioned in these terms is that the study noted that the Plum Street option was the best in terms of sustainability and growth management because of the best use of existing infrastructure, and that related to a number of factors, but that weighed heavily on my thinking. That's, to me, another layer on top of economic development and the other things we talked about. And then the other thing I thought was important was that I've heard a couple of different folks worried about the tiny homes village, and I wanted to just note that Mayor Selby addressed that last week about that was a temporary site and could be moved if necessary, and I just wanted people to know that because I heard that several times as the #1 concern about Plum.
And having said that, thank you. My concern was that Thurston County is moving you out. We're the bad guy, and I don't want to be the bad guys. And I don't mean that gender specific. I just don't want to be the government's coming in and moving you folks, because that just seems heartless. But I think that's been addressed. Yeah, I just want to be sure.
It's not a permanent camp
right.
like Fleetwood Village. They
Got
were
it.
built to be transportable to another site as
Right.
needed.
And some of the other positives about downtown is it's 50% closer to my house, and that's obviously selfish, but I think just local access, it's right on, as Ron explained, it's got numerous entrances to the facility, not just one into the building. There'd be a couple on the west side eventually, potentially. Right off the freeway, IT, bus lines, it's easily within reach for the employees and people visiting the courthouse or having to live at the courthouse if they're on jury duty, for all kinds of amenities within walking distance, or just drive a couple blocks and a couple quarters and you're taken care of. And so I think there's a lot of merit to downtown. Although the old City Hall kind of holds a dear place in my heart, and it'll be not there anymore. And we got to preserve that sign of Lee Creighton Justice Center. Somehow we've got to preserve that.
Which that might be presenting a challenge as well, removing the old City Hall. But I think that would be
a delicate conversation with our Heritage Commission.
And so that would be a different, that would be another challenge that perhaps we need to overcome.
Again, it's not a willingness, it's an ability. More hurdles to jump over. Gary, do you have any positives?
Come on, Gary.
just
well,
one.
I guess we can make the parking garage taller.
Got one.
So moving on to the Harrison Avenue option, the same question. Any positives, any gaps, any opportunities, any pitfalls that you see with that particular site?
I would say it would be the one with the least disruption of anything. You know, if it was completed at that location, it'd just be a move-in, kind of a turnkey move-in. Boy, a downside for me, though, is I'm from out at the Yelm area, and we've been talking about a bypass out at Yelm for about 18 years now, and we're halfway there. So when we talk about putting in new infrastructure exits, such off of 101, I don't know, it makes me awful nervous. I'd hate to bet on the come on anything.
Well, the obvious, the financials, it looked a little bit cheaper to build there than the others. I mean, you know, obviously we have choices about budget, program, and et cetera, but I think just overall, that's obviously important, and it's the ease of the project, as Commissioner Edwards pointed out, and the cost make it, to me, viable. closer to my house. But that's not my consideration.
Thank you for clarifying that.
The one thing I just point out is I went to, I'm trying to think, a couple different meetings. One was the community meeting that we had that was in the West Side, and another one was I presented this issue to the Thurston County Realtors who were, involved in residential issues, and immediately piped up and said, don't build it on the West Side. And the folks, a lot of folks were not happy about the concept of, and I think it's about, it's like Hilltop is we said it's the best in terms of everybody knows where it is, it's not disrupting anything, it's what people expect to be here. I think Plum is your next choice in that regard because that area has got a hotel and it's got freeway interchanges, and so putting a big building there is consistent with the overall character of that neighborhood. It's going to disrupt and make fewer people that live in the nearby areas upset that you've changed the character of their town. The West Side is not the same. People there do not see their neighborhood as a place where there's civic centers and massive economic developments. And again, it might be long-term good for the community, I'm not saying that, but I just want to point that out, that there are people that live in and around there that feel very strongly that is not consistent with the character of the West Side of Olympia, that particular part of the West Side of Olympia. So that was something that I heard, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to hear that, but it gave me pause.
What did the realtors say? What was their perspective on where it should go then? They did not want it on the West Side?
They did not want, that's all they said is don't build it on the West Side. I mean, it was just a few voices, obviously. I was speaking to the full group. It was maybe 40-some realtors, and it was just a few. But the people that were fired up about it were fired up to say, don't build it on the West Side. I thought that was interesting. And it kind of fit with all the homeowners that had expressed that. I think it's just there's a residential mindset over there that I think it would be a transformation of that area that we'd have to think about and consciously want to do.
Well, there's a lot of pluses and a lot of negatives in my view. I think it has, of all three spots, it has the greatest potential for economic development when it comes to whether it be to complement the medical, Capital Medical Center, or restaurants, attorneys, as we pointed out, attorney law firms moving in, white collar type jobs and such, increasing the restaurants that are out there, out that far. It is expandable as a location. We could spread up or sideways, and there's no displacement of government or employees, which means that we can maintain continuity of government here until we're ready to move in over a weekend. Financially, it's attractive financially. The negatives are its distance. I don't like that it's so close to Ty's residence. But there's the distance alone, I think, to where currently, where we are centralized and where things are functioning right now, 20, 30 years from now, maybe that would be the heart of something. I don't know, but right now it's not. It just doesn't feel right to me to put a courthouse or complex court administration buildings out that far. And then still betting on the come that that an off-ramp would be in the very short, near future, because the state moves very slowly. And so I'm not guaranteed that. And the bus route, as it was explained a week ago by Ron, or the Thomas brothers, not the map ones, that the bus route, they just extended, IT just extended out there, and that's the end of the bus route. So that, yeah, that's good, but is it sufficient? I don't know. And when you compare it with downtown or here, with location or locale, transportation, walkability and such, West Side doesn't compare in my mind. So those are the positives and negatives of the West Side.
I think just the thing I said before also plays into the politics too, because I would expect that Olympia, with this project, with Olympia having a history of passing initiatives and being willing to do that, and the project being in Olympia, that we would expect the best support for the project from Olympia. If we anger a huge swath of voters on the West Side, that's cutting into the deepest base of support, and it could really hurt us, because I expect this to be a pretty close vote. We want to, you know, that's why I think I'm mindful of a place that'll be least disruptive, so we get Olympians to really buy in 100%.
What is kind of cool is I never knew this when I was running for this position, but we are given an exceptionally unique opportunity, and with that comes a tremendous amount of responsibility to do the right thing for our employees, for our customers, for the community, for the city, for whatever it is. We have a great opportunity now that's going to be historic as well as generational. And it's a huge responsibility, and I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And a lot of people will probably support our decision, and some will question it and scratch their head. And I don't know really where I'm landing just yet, which is kind of odd. So I relish this. It's tough, but I relish it. It's really fun. But it's true. I mean, it's real. Gary, anything? No. Ty?
So any additional thoughts on any of the sites, commissioners?
I'm spent.
So next steps, and again, we'll have, you have already scheduled, I have already scheduled an executive session. Next Tuesday will be the 22nd, 2 in the afternoon. And just for the public's information, that is close to the public. That will give you an opportunity to have a conversation mainly related to some potential financial strategies that you may consider on each of those sites. Excuse me. And also, you heard a lot of good information from your elected officials, and as well as the department directors. And you also heard from the City of Olympia requesting you to give additional time before you make a final decision on the site. And that should be also part of your consideration next Tuesday as we move along.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, thank you.
I think there's a real political advantage to being on the August ballot. What's the timeline? I mean,
So
people are feeling like we got to make this decision.
If I may, I would like to probably, if I may, encourage you to focus on the first step. And the first step at this point is narrowing down to one side. What is the preferred side? The next step in your decision-making process will be when you like to put this on the ballot, whether it's August or November. That is a conversation that needs to occur after you make the decision on the site. So I will encourage you, not to go through the process of making a decision on the site and yet at the same time making a decision as to when you would like to put in front of the voters. That is a next decision. If you decide to move forward on the August ballot, you need to make a decision by May. And that is the schedule that we have.
So, but I have a point of clarification. I have the same. I agree that August is going to be better for us politically, but I also have concern with Olympia. And you said 2 weeks' time, Mayor, but did you give a date that you were meeting next or something like that?
The land use is meeting on January 24th, so a week from this Thursday. But we don't meet on the 5th Tuesday of the month, so we don't have a meeting on January 29th, I believe that is.
Yes.
And so it would be the following Tuesday before we could meet as a body and discuss this.
We're talking February the 5th. Yes. Good grief. Okay. We'll focus on the first piece. Boy, that's tough. Okay. You have anything? Go ahead, Gary.
I guess, although this isn't really a real hearing, like sometimes we have hearings, but I would ask the viewing public out there, however they get their media about this activity today, is let your elected officials know where you're at. What do you think? It's coming, so what do you think about it?
Have you gotten any Olympian coverage of this process?
Yeah, some, but not much.
We have some, and it's a hit and miss with.
The problem with that is the distribution is only about 6,000 or 7,000 now, and that's not reaching outside of the urban core here.
Probably more than watching it, but
Yeah. You're,
To make a record of that, 4 years ago, Judge Murphy and I appeared at the editorial board of the Olympian. And the Olympian endorsed the downtown site.
Oh, excuse me, Judge. Microphone. We don't want to miss what you have to say.
This is important.
Yeah.
Of course.
4 years ago, Judge Murphy and I appeared at the Olympian editorial board, and the Olympian, as a result, in their editorial endorsed the downtown site as a transformative site impacting the wide variety of issues facing the city of Olympia, and as the capital seat and the biggest city in the county, they felt it was important for all of the citizens of this county to locate a courthouse downtown.
And they probably have a greater circulation than this, but this will be more accurate.
you want good coverage? Don't do that.
As I said this morning, what the Olympian does is vital to our community. They play an important role, but they're not definitive. Anthony, you want to keep wrapping it up before I get in trouble?
That's really what I have for you. And again, we'll see you next week. You have an interesting week ahead of you and having some thought process going. And we'll see where it goes next. I'd like to thank you all for participating and appreciate your feedback.
Thank you all as well, very much.
Thank you.
We're done.